Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Sensei Inc, and I am back today with another One Piece discussion. Now, today we're going to talk about Zoro and Supreme Grade weapons, but more importantly, will Zoro get his own Supreme Grade weapon at some point in the story? And even more specifically, will it be after Wano? But before we get into this theory, if you guys want to help out the channel in any way possible, make sure you like the video, it helps with the algorithm, and if you want more One Piece theories like these, make sure you subscribe and turn on those post notifications. Let's get into the video. Now, some months back, we got a revelation about the origin of Koshiro and Kuina and their lineage in relation to Wano. Now, because of this relation to Wano, us finding out the reason that Koshiro had these certain weapons, and also learning about the specific blacksmith of their clan, it led me to a lot of different ideas. I want to read the conversation that Oda had in this interview that kind of explains the lineage for Koshiro and Wano. So it starts out with the interviewer saying, "Odachi, a question. Several characters have appeared with the same Shimotsuki, including Shimotsuki Yasui, Shimotsuki Ryuma, Shimotsuki Kozaburo, and Shimotsuki Ushimaru. But is there a connection with the place Zoro grew up in that bears the exact name, Shimotsuki Village, and Zoro's teacher, Toshiro? So given how Zoro said he was taught the term Tsunachi by a geezer in his village, and how in Volume 92's SBS you revealed how some came to the East Blue, it's starting to make sense. Now, there's a specific panel in which Zoro was teaching Momonosuke. They were training together. They were in the Amagasa village in the bamboo forest. Momonosuke says to Zoro, "Zoro, I was told not to say the word Tsunachi." And then Zoro responds, "The geezer in my village used to say it back in the day, so it was something that I just picked up." Momonosuke was confused and says, "Huh?" Now, Oda continues the interview and says, "Ah, yes, you might have to follow very closely to this picture, but let me explain. It all starts with Shimotsuki Kozaburo, the swordsmith and swordsman. Now, keep in mind, he's a swordsmith. 1. He forges the Enma and bestows it to the heir of the Kozuki family, Oden. 55 years ago, he sets out to sea. He was a samurai of Wano, and he has a grand adventure. They make landfall in a certain place in the East Blue. They save the locals from mountain bandits. They teach the villagers the way of the sword, who become enamored with swordplay. They decide to settle their founding Shimotsuki village. His son, Koshiro, is born. His granddaughter, Kuina, is born." To put in other words, who Zoro meant by a geezer in the village that he met was actually Grandpa Shimotsuki Kozaburo-san himself, who comes from the Wano country. Oh, then could that mean Zoro's lineage? Well, the story of Shimotsuki Kozaburo, the samurai who founded Shimotsuki village, is all I'm willing to share today. Typical of how Shimotsuki village was founded, etc, etc. That gave me an idea about Zoro and his lineage, well, possible lineage, to Wano, and about his swords. Now, throughout the story, we learn about these different blades. We learn about the 12 Supreme Grade swords, the 21 Great Grade swords, and the 50 Skillful Grade swords. Now, currently, Zoro has the Wado Ichimonji, which is one of the 21 Great Grade swords. He has the Sandai Kitetsu, which is a cursed sword, well, it's said to be cursed, and he has Enma, another one of the 21 Great Swords. So, with that being said, Zoro has some powerful swords, right? But then I started thinking, how can Zoro leave his own mark in history? Well, of course, through fighting strong opponents, through defeating them, and by, of course, ultimately becoming the world's greatest swordsman. But there needs to be something specific for me that could leave Zoro's lineage and his history behind. What better way than to have his own sword crafted? I know that there are only 12 Supreme Grade swords, but we know that they are only Supreme Grade swords because they were made by world-renowned or famous blacksmiths. Now, this blacksmith that ended up making Enma, he's not alive anymore. Well, at least I don't think he is. It's been a long time. However, what if there is a blacksmith in Wano, or in a later part of the story, in which Zoro could get his own Supreme Grade weapon? Perhaps there is a blacksmith alive, a legendary blacksmith that has made one of the other Supreme Grade swords. Because if you think about it, we don't know the blacksmiths that have made the other Supreme Grade swords. We only know of two, which was Whitebeard's and Mihawk. But we don't know who crafted their swords. There could be a blacksmith that is that famous that has created one crafted, because it would speak miles and miles to his legacy. Having a Supreme Grade weapon, just like Mihawk has with Yoru, will give Zoro that extra push in his reach to become the world's strongest swordsman. Because when you think about great swordsmen, they have great weapons, right? Oden had Enma and Amane no Habakiri. We have Mihawk with Yoru. So we have these great swordsmen having their own weapons that define them specifically. I would love to see that for Zoro. Now, as far as Zoro's lineage into Wano and where I see things going, I think that there's going to be a point in which we get a small flashback where maybe maybe Zoro sees something in Wano or has a moment in Wano that he can remember from his very early childhood. Now, Zoro could have just been born in the East Blue, but perhaps he has a lineage that came from Wano, or he's been there and visited before when he was very young and just doesn't remember. Either way, I would love if Zoro ends up helping Luffy to save Wano, to open the borders, if he gets rewarded with his own sword. There may be a situation in which he gets his own sword made and it's not necessarily a supreme grade weapon. Perhaps it's just a great blade. But either way, him having his own blade speaks volumes to who he is as a swordsman. Does he need his own? To me, just means so much more. The sword kind of speaks for the man in a lot of ways. It always revolves around Enma. You can see how a sword being legendary can influence not only the story, but the perspective of the viewer so much. So imagine if Zoro has his own sword that was crafted specifically for him. Then I feel like a lot of those conversations would be different. But because Oda has chosen to give Zoro Enma, I feel like people are saying, oh, he's used to kind of take away from Zoro's feats a little bit. And that's at least from the perspective of some of the viewers. Now, me personally, I don't mind it. It doesn't matter that he has Enma or Wado Ichimonji or the Sandai. It doesn't matter what sword he has, because if he wasn't skilled in swordsmanship, if he wasn't physically strong and physical, Zoro, not necessarily him getting a really powerful weapon crafted for him to be able to do more damage, that has nothing to do with it. It's more so how I want Zoro to be remembered in the story after he's long and gone, or once he becomes more of a lurking legend or someone that just kind of drifts and does his own thing. Later in life, when he becomes like a Rayleigh, where he's just chilling, drinking, enjoying himself, people will remember him because of his feats, because he's the world's strongest swordsman, because of what he's done for his legacy. But how cool would it be for people to just know of this supreme grade weapon, or this great blade weapon that is the embodiment of Zoro? One day Zoro passes on, that's going to be a sad day when any of the Straw Hats die, right? But even when the story's over later, when he's 80, 90, 100, whatever, however long he lives, and he passes on, when his sword goes to Wano or wherever it goes and it's in his grave, people will know that is Roa Noa Zoro, the world's strongest swordsman. And they'll